Well, Speaker McCarthy is facing GOP backlash. President Biden also feeling the heat from progressives on Capitol Hill, some calling it a bad policy and goes against Democrat values and abandons those Americans who rely on programs like SNAP, saying this deal expands on work requirements for food aid, making it harder for those families to seek government assistance. At the other side of the aisle here on the highly controversial debt deal, joining me now just in from Washington, Congressman Jim Costa. Welcome back to Sunday Morning Matters. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alexander. It's always good to be on Sunday Morning Matters because it does.
That's
it matters.
Right. And, you know, a lot matters after what we went through this week. Everybody was waiting for this deadline. It gets done here. And I'm wondering from you, you sent out a letter February 1st. You remember that letter that you sent out and said, let's get this done. You issued it to Speaker McCarthy and also the president, along with bipartisan support. Why wouldn't that get done back in February? And we had a lot of controversy leading up.
Well, we did. And unfortunately, those of us who signed the letter, I was one of the leaders of it, our wishes were not followed. And consequently, a lot of other things came up in between. And Congress works for better or worse under deadlines. And sometimes we don't always meet the deadlines. But we finally did the right thing and reached a compromise, as we must.
You know, $32 trillion in debt. Come 2025, that's going to be raised another $4 trillion as you suspend the debt ceiling at this point. And I'm wondering from you, is America bankrupt?
No, we're not bankrupt, but we certainly have not provided an effort to align our expenditures with our revenues, and that's the key, that's the challenge. In the 19 years I've been in Congress, we have voted to increase it 17 times, 3 times under the Trump administration. That was the last, and the whole time our deficit that you pointed out went from 17 trillion to 28 trillion. It increased by 25% during the Trump administration. If that had not occurred, we would not have to have lifted the debt ceiling as we did this year.
You brought me back a souvenir from Washington.
Right.
It is your vote on the passage of that on the House floor. And obviously, I know the votes, you know the votes.
Right.
At home, if you're not counting, there were more Democrats in favor of this than Republicans. Does that surprise you?
No, because Democrats in the years that I've been there have always felt that it's one of our obligations never to put our economy in jeopardy, because this is our nation's ability to maintain you know, a good functioning economy, jobs, pay Social Security, pay our veterans. This is all about our accrued debt, and America's not a deadbeat. This is about paying our bills. We have a problem with our overall debt, to be sure, and what that requires is Democrats and Republicans sitting down and trying to get an agreement on our expenditures versus the revenues that pay for what we prioritize as important.
I'm wondering from you, we heard from Speaker McCarthy in an exclusive interview. He says America won. He also says the Central Valley won. Do you agree?
Yes, I think that any member of Congress that threatens to shut down government or to not lift the debt ceiling and bring us into economic chaos is irresponsible. So America did win when we do this, and there should not be the drama, frankly, but to use those that wanted to use the leverage, and they attempted to use the leverage of the debt ceiling for other political agendas, were not successful, and that's why America won.
I'll finish with this. A lot of controversy over Speaker McCarthy's negotiation with the president. And I'm wondering from you, I know you're on the other side of the aisle here, and I know you would rather probably see Hakeem Jeffries with the gavel. Do you think his party really exploits the concession of the SNAP vote and puts his speakership maybe in jeopardy? Well,
I think there are a number of other issues that will determine who maintains the majority after the elections next year. But I think that, you know, I want every president to do well. I want every speaker to do well. And they negotiated, as they should, on a compromise. And I think the vote reflected that compromise. I think there are a lot of members in Speaker McCarthy's conference that, frankly, would just as soon bring the economy into chaos to fit their own political agenda. And that was a tough tough set of issues he had to negotiate within his own conference.
All right, Congressman, we appreciate the time. Thank you for
Yeah.
getting off a plane and hopping right on Sunday Morning Matters. Appreciate
Well, it's
the time.
important.
This is fabulous. This is one of the best nights I've ever been here. I thought it would be hard. I thought it'd be almost impossible just to get to 218. Now I found there's a whole new day here. We've woken them up. Maybe they listened to our speeches. I don't know.
Well, that is Speaker McCarthy following Wednesday night's vote on the House floor, being just a bit facetious there, touting this debt limit deal garners the biggest cuts in American history, but many in his own party threatening to rebel against him. So is there any chance Congressman McCarthy will be stripped of his speaker's gavel over the debt limit deal? Joining me now from Washington, South Valley Congressman David Valadao. Great to have you back here on Sunday Morning Matters. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to begin with your vote on the debt deal. What did you like? What did you dislike? And obviously, it's a done deal.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's never a perfect deal in Washington, D.C. And the fact that we were able to get the president to the negotiating table after him saying for months that he would not is a positive. I mean, ultimately, I think the American people want us sitting down at the table, talking to one another and having conversation to try to solve the problems for the country. I think the permitting reform was a big deal for us. I thought the caps on spending was a good one for us. Obviously, some of the things with getting folks back to work is a positive for us. And the debt ceiling ultimately needed to be raised. I mean, you can't have expenditures in law, as in what happened over the last Congress, when they pass bills and they sign them into law and actually put the dollars in motion where they have to be spent. You have to honor those expenditures. And if we had hit the debt ceiling and had to default, it could have been a problem for capital markets across the country.
Is there a real winner in all of this? Did the American people win? Did conservatives win? Did liberals win? Is there a winner?
No, there's never a real winner on a compromise like this. The reality is you've got people on the far right that are screaming bloody murder, and you've got some on the far left. And we've got one of my colleagues here in California, a Democrat, who's going to vote opposed in opposition to it because he thinks it was too much of a giveaway to the energy industry. And obviously making sure that we continue to produce oil here in America, I think, is important. And so apparently we did too much. And it's always funny to watch both sides kind of scream at one another and say you gave away everything. But ultimately, I think there was a compromise there, and we got both sides of the aisle to the table, and we're seeing the fruits of that.
You know, Speaker McCarthy, as you know, facing some GOP backlash, mostly from the far-right members of Congress, including Texas Congressman Chip Roy, a member of the Freedom Caucus. He said, quote, "No matter what happens, there is going to be a reckoning." Several GOP members echoing that same sentiment, as you know. McCarthy agreed in January as a concession to his conservative critics. Any one House member can offer a resolution to remove the House Speaker. Do you expect that to happen?
I don't. And if they decide to make that decision on this negotiation, I mean, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. And the reality is we've got a budget coming up. We've got a whole appropriations process coming up. We've got a farm bill coming up. We've got a lot of opportunity to chip away at some of these huge expenditures that this government is doing. We chipped away at that with this bill. And if we start shooting at one another and just creating these little controversies, ultimately the only people that lose is the American people. I think Speaker McCarthy's done an excellent job. He found a way to get the president to the table. He was able to get a bill off the House floor when everyone said it couldn't be done. And now we're at the end of the negotiation for the debt ceiling. We got a lot more ahead of us. And this game of he's not perfect, he didn't do everything exactly the way I want, and I'm going to throw my toys out. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, it doesn't win them any favors, and it doesn't do anything for the overall cause.
The race for the Republican nomination, I want to switch gears here because a lot of news is happening. We had Ron DeSantis jump into the race not too long ago. Mike Pence officially saying that he's going to jump in the race June 7th. And Mike Pence came to endorse you here in the Central Valley. So I'm wondering if you're ready to endorse Mike Pence, the former vice president, as Republican nomination of the presidency.
So I've said it for a long time. I'm not getting involved in anything presidential, especially in this cycle right now. But I mean, Mike Pence is a He was a great vice president. I've known him for a number of years and worked with him very well. I consider him a good friend, and I think he'd be a great president. But I also came to Congress as a freshman with Ron DeSantis. I think he's a great guy. You've got a lot of great people out there. I'm not going to pick any favorites just yet, but there are a lot of good people out there and a lot of good choices. So I really do wish him the best, and I think he'd do a great job.
Congressman David Valadao, hey, we appreciate the time here, and have a great rest of your weekend. Appreciate the time.
You too. Thanks for having me.